Welcome to the Choose Joy podcast. Come inside, take you on a ride and show you how to align. This is for my people who can hustle and grind. They put the bag on the line, overwhelmed inside. It's the Choose Joy podcast. Come inside. This is for my people who can hustle and grind. Love yourself, loving others. The storm is alive. Be patient with yourself. Success won't pass you by. Hello, everyone. I am Dr. Sherrill Williams, and this is the Choose Joy podcast, right? Where we look at what it means to love yourself, love others, but also love your enemies and those obstacles that you go through in life and your entrepreneurial journey. And today we have a fabulous entrepreneur, father, man of God. You guys, I am so excited for you to learn more about Mr. Josh Payne, creator of the Uncaged Clinician, one of the creators, of course. Josh, thank you so much for being here.
Sherrill, I'm pumped to be here. I'm just excited to talk about this topic, and wherever you lead it, that's totally fine with me. I've got tons to share today.
Yeah. So I do want to give people some background. Josh is a physical therapist turned, entrepreneur, but I would love for you to just go deeper in with the people and tell them all about you.
Yeah, so I was your typical PT who I couldn't find what I wanted to do. I had 6 jobs in 4 years, and quickly found myself with a resume that was a mess. And I said, it was a question from my wife, a dart of a question from my wife. That was one of those impactful moments of, hey, are you ever going to be happy as a physical therapist? And my honest answer was no. And so then I was left on a journey in Denver, Colorado to say, okay, I'm going to try to start my own practice. I'm going to do this whole cash-based practice thing. Started it. Really, all I can say is God just really delivered in that area and had a good amount of success, and people started to ask questions, and I felt led to write a book, and then started to get asked by other practice owners, hey, what are you doing? And what I always say about coaching and consulting is coaching found me. Like, it was never something that I tried to find. It was something that found me. And really, it was just putting out a few posts on Facebook, and then bam, suddenly I've got a coaching and consulting business that I didn't know what to do with. And then again, it's always my wife who asks the great questions. She's like, hey, this coaching business is just as big as your practice. You've got to make a decision. And guess what? I want to move back to Texas. And because we had our first child in Colorado. And so we moved back to Texas. I sold my practice, went full blown into coaching and consulting. That was at the end of 2019. And I've been doing that ever since, running Uncaged Clinician with my two business partners.
And I want to say the vision of the Uncaged Clinician is like my favorite, that we guide, build, and mentor and coach others to love unconditionally, serve selflessly, care deeply, and lead others to do the same. Like, what? That's perfect. It's so like, how did that happen? Was that everyone was sitting down and you wrote it together, or because I love it?
We sat down, and of course we know that our core values are the values that we've been given as men and women of God. Yeah. And I mean, if you can't tell, those values come from the Bible. Yeah. And we said, okay, we know our values. I think that those are values, whether people are Christian or not, need to have in their lives. And the fascinating thing is, most of us as healthcare practitioners, like, most of us start our careers wanting those things. To be able to love people, to serve people better, to care for people deeply, to be able to lead people better. And then sometimes it just gets kind of ripped away throughout the process. And we start becoming just the cog in the wheel, more focused on productivity than love, more focused on just being a cog in the wheel than serving people at a higher level. And that's where we get burnout. And so we just realized as a team, it's like, this is what we do. And if I don't want this to sound negative, but if nobody else is going to do it properly, we're going to instill love, serve, care, and lead back into the profession the best that we can.
Amen. Yes. Oh, absolutely. And it's so funny. I was telling you prior to, now I'm in the clinic and I feel that like, you become that cog in the wheel. And it's a choice, and making an effort even in the confines, right, of regular clinic life, of how to still serve and care deeply.
Yeah.
But I just love that. So I would love for you to tell us, like, how have you actively had to choose joy during your entrepreneurial journey?
Yes, I got another story for you.
Oh,
And
yes.
maybe you haven't heard this one, but this goes deep quick. Like those that know me know that like I waste little time, especially in person. We're not going to keep it very superficial for very long. We're going to dive into the deep end, whether you like it or not. And
Mhm.
so diving into the deep end is 2.5 years ago. So I was well into my coaching business, Uncaged Clinician, not that long ago. 2.5 years ago, I was in the midst of trying to publish my second book. I felt like, and by the way, for those listeners, like my second book still isn't published, and just keep it at that. I really felt like, man, I gotta get this second book out. Other people have told me that they would love for me to write a second book. I got to get it out there, man. I'm gonna try to traditionally publish it. Like I'm gonna try to get a publisher. This is gonna go bonkers. Like, man, I was just seeing like New York Times bestseller, like all of that. Whether that sounds silly or not, that's really was my headspace 2.5 years ago.
Mhm.
And I was in the midst of trying to publish it by October 2021. So actually, that is 2 years ago, exactly 2 years ago. So not 2.5. October 2021 was my deadline. I was like, I've got to have it done by then. We're probably September-ish when this happened, and I came home, and my wife was home with my our two little boys, and came home, and I just fell off, completely off, and was not feeling right. It wasn't feeling sick. I just wasn't feeling right. And I remember telling my wife, I was like, I gotta go lay down on our bed. Like I don't feel sick, but I just feel off. Um, and I laid down. It really didn't go away. And so then I stood up, and at this point, I didn't really know, but I was kind of white as a ghost. And I come to my wife. I was like, babe, and by the way, context, I hate going to the doctor. I don't like going to the doctor. I never have. And I stood up next to my wife, who's in the living room playing with our kids. And I was like, Shelby, I think I need to go to the emergency room.
Mm.
And she was like, what? I was like, I think I'm having a heart attack. And so what was happening? I was trying to be a man and not tell my wife all of these symptoms, but like my chest was tight. I felt like
Mhm.
it was difficult to breathe. I felt I was starting to have chest pain and chest heaviness. It's like, man, what is going on? And it was just getting steadily worse. I thought by laying down it would get better. Anyway, she's like, okay. So she's freaking out at that point, but I was like, babe, stay at home with the kids. Our hospital's just 5 minutes away. Let me get in my car. I get in my car, and this is a true story. I'm going to go deep. I don't know where your audience stands, but we're just going to go for it.
Go in.
Is I start merging onto the highway, and I felt like a tingling in my hands that
Mhm.
then traveled up to my chest and up to my neck, to where everything basically up to my neck started to feel tingly and numb. And I thought, no joke, like I called my wife. And I was like, I think I'm having one of those widowmaker heart attacks. I love you so much. And then I put up the phone. So behind the scenes, my wife is calling my mom, and they're rushing to the hospital because they're like, what is going on? I called the hospital. I told them that. I was like, I'm having a heart attack. As soon as I roll up, they were like, we'll have a wheelchair for you immediately. So I pull up to the front. They've got a wheelchair ready for me. I come in, they wheel me back. They waste no time. They pop me, give me an aspirin, jump me back to a room almost immediately. And I forgot to add this part. I was so desperate in the car. I haven't had a moment like this in my life. I truly felt like it was my last day.
Mhm.
And so I was screaming out to God in my car. I was like, God, just like this can't be like this can't be it. I got a less than a 1-year-old. I've got a 2.5-year-old at home. Like I've got a what like this can't be it. I need you. Like, please just be with me. So this anxiety carries on and I'm being wheeled back. And then as soon as I get back into that room, instantly, before the doctor had come in, before the nurse even came in, instant peace. And the best way that I can describe it was like almost like a hug around me that was like, you're going to be okay. You're going to be fine. And so so I'm calmed down at this point. My blood pressure starts dropping and the doctor does all of the tests and he comes in after, the slew and battery of heart tests and is like, Josh, you weren't having a heart attack. You were having an anxiety attack. How's your anxiety? And how's your stress really was what we was asking. Is like, well, it's not good. I'm trying to publish a book. I'm trying to do all these things. I'm trying to run a business. I'm trying to be a leader of my family. I'm trying to take care of 2 kids along with my wife. Like it's not good. And he was a phenomenally nice guy. And I was like, what do I need to do? And he was like, well, there's lots of different things you can do for stress. But then he kind of joked with me and he was like, but when you figure it out, come let us know because we'd love to know. And
Oh,
we just kind of started laughing. But I was like, yeah, man, I don't think people have a really good answer to stress because most of us live with it. And so I'm left with, man, I'm 36 as we're recording this podcast. I was 34. I'm 34 years old. I just had an anxiety attack, which I didn't even know I dealt with anxiety. And suddenly felt this feeling of like, man, for 34 years, really for the last 20 years, I've always felt like I was an invincible human. Like, give
mhm.
me all the tasks, give me all the businesses. Let's go, baby. Let's do this thing. And suddenly it was like this moment of weakness of realizing that like, man, I can't do it all. And so it led to deep breathing. It led to walks. It led to all this stuff, which helped to an extent,
Yes.
which then led to me diving headfirst into my faith because of that
Oh,
moment that I experienced with God. That moment of, hey, you're going to be okay. I'm like, okay, you're there for me in that moment. That's like one of the weakest moments I've had so far in my life. You're there for me in that moment. I better start spending time with you. And it's been a radical journey the last 2 years since then. I got baptized. I was basically baptized as a baby in the Catholic
mhm.
faith, but then baptized as an adult in March 2022 after that moment.
Okay.
And it's just been kind of a pretty crazy, amazing journey since then of trying to find how do I find joy and peace in my life?
Wow. So this provides me personally so much information because I noticed on Facebook a switch and then the scripture started and I'm loving it. I was like, wait, when did this happen? And then I remember you talking about getting baptized and I was like, wow, wow, what a story. One, thank you for being vulnerable and sharing that because so often you hear I made this many thousands and I've got
Yeah.
this many coaching students and no one talks about like the breakdown.
Hmm.
And I had a breakdown and I've seen others had a breakdown and I think you know I've been grappling at what am I doing next, and when I heard your story I said, oh, this you know like having this conversation because without our body, without our mind, we don't have anything. Nothing actually matters, right? At the end of the day, you're like, man, I have
Nope.
my wife, I have my boys, beautiful family. This can't be it. Um, and wow,
Can,
I'm at a
can I
loss
add
for
something?
words. Yeah,
Can I add
please.
something? Because I want you guys to really get this is 2 months later. So again, I was like kind of in shock that had happened. really was kind of left just like bewildered is the best word that I can use.
Mhm.
And then 2 months later, I'm a guy that loves to get my hair cut every 2 weeks. It's not like it's a abnormal thing. Same guy's been cutting my hair for the last 3 years. And I
Mhm.
sit in that seat and I nearly have another panic attack or anxiety attack just sitting in the freaking chair.
Mm.
I was just sitting there and bam, it just hit me. And so what I started to realize was that my body, like I get a lot of signs that I'm stressed, but then I've just learned to push through it, work harder. And what I've learned over the last 2 years now is just like when I get those signs of stress, I mean, first off, I just go to God and I'm relieved of that stress. But I hit the I get the warning signs instead of pushing past it. I'm like, hey, I'm gonna go for a walk. Hey, I'm gonna go take some time and pray or spend some time, whatever that is for you. So I don't want to make this like I'm preaching at you, but more so like
Preach.
this is
Preach,
what
preach.
this is what I do
Yes.
because I realized I was in such a pattern of when I would hit those warning signs, I would just blast through it. And that's just it's extremely unhealthy and not the way that we're supposed to live, but especially Western culture chooses to live.
Absolutely. And I want you to share it all because it's going to bless. It's going to bless someone. You know, I remember early on in school and into entrepreneurship, I had anxiety and then I couldn't turn my thoughts off. I was always thinking about the business. I
Yeah.
stopped everything. I can't hang with you. I can't do this because I have the business and I have goals. And a big realization I had, I have no faith. I really had no faith. One, how dare we
Two.
think that we're doing all of this on our own?
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
And then we think that because it's just us that we have to do it all on our
Mhm.
own and we run ourselves into the ground. But when you realize and you accept that you are a daughter and son of God and you have faith that he is going to come through, you can maneuver differently. And
Yes.
just like you got to that hospital and everything calmed down, he shows up if you let him and if you ask.
His grace shows up even though I didn't deserve it because up until then I was living a life where I was going after all let's talk about this. I was going
Mhm.
after all the desires of my heart and then asking God to come along that journey with me. You
Mm.
want to see something that really chaps me as we would say internally at Uncaged, it really gets me fired up and going is
Yeah.
how much we all talk about go after all the desires of your heart. The Bible says the heart is deceitful.
Talk about it.
If you let the desires of his heart become the desires of your heart, then surely, yeah, go after the desires of your heart. But it starts with having an identity in him, an identity in who you are, having a relationship with him, and then understanding what your purpose is, meaning his desires become your desires, then yeah, go after the desires of your heart. But if it's not going in that order, I'm gonna explain that in a second because I want to teach your audience that. But if you let's say the desires of your heart are to buy a Lamborghini. We see this all the time in the entrepreneurship space. Buy a Lamborghini or buy a huge house or whatever it is. Nothing inherently wrong with that. But just understand the track you're about to put yourself on. You're going to go after those things, which are really, really meaningless. And
Mhm.
you're going to put everything else, most likely, on the back burner so you can achieve that goal. It's probably going to affect relationships. It's
Mm.
probably going to affect everything in between if we're going to go after the desires of our heart for that direction. So yeah, you can go after the Lamborghini, but you're going to sacrifice a lot in the process. Are you actually slowing down enough to say, hey, am I willing to sacrifice those things? So let's just use maybe not Lamborghini, but me with writing a book. There's a reason why I haven't written the second book is because I don't believe God's told me to.
Mm.
That second book was 100%. Look, I'm going to throw myself under the bus. Sherrill, I had literally like a vision board in my office that had like New York Times bestseller, Wall Street Journal bestseller. Like it was all about me. It was all
Mm.
about me. I would stare at it every day and try to whatever, make that into reality or manifest it, whatever the heck that means that we say in the entrepreneurship space too. I don't say it anymore because I've had some radical experiences that have made me think much, much differently. I'm not trying to manifest anything. I just want whatever God's will for my life is to come to pass in my life. I'm not trying to do anything like that, but it literally, because my heart is deceitful, led me towards a path of destruction. And it led me to a point of, hey, I've got to become so weak that I finally realized that God, Jesus is Lord, that he's the person I need to be following. But here's what I want to teach you, and this is what I learned and what I shared with Sherrill pre-podcast, is when we actually know who we are. So for context, if you actually know and believe in your heart that you are a beloved son or daughter, you will then know who he is, who God is. You'll know him, and you'll know him as your father. And I want you to think about this. If you were, let's throw ourselves back 1,000 years. If you were just a peasant and you were in one of these cities with the walls that we've seen, one of these older cities in history, and you were considered a peasant and you lived in the poorer section of the city. And then all of a sudden, you got an invitation up to the king's palace. And they said, hey, we've been doing some genealogy. And we found out that you are actually in the royal family. You no longer belong there. You belong here. Once you know that you are belonging to the royal family, what are you going to do the rest of your life? Are you going to live like the peasant? No, you're going to spend the rest of your life building the royal family, right?
Yeah.
So if you know who you are, if you actually truly believe you are a beloved son, so this is identity, we're going to actually understand and believe who he is, who God is. And then if we really believe that he is our father, we're going to spend our life building his kingdom.
Yeah.
But we get it all wrong. What do we try to do? I want you to think about this as basically 3 circles. I wish I could teach this on a whiteboard for you guys, but you're going to get it. But most of the time we go backwards. So building his kingdom is purpose. Mm-hmm. We start with purpose and we say, I'm going to write that book so that God is proud of me and so that my wife is proud of me. And therefore it gives me identity.
Yeah.
I'm going to build that business because then people around me will see me as successful and then I will feel successful. Mm-hmm. We go backwards nonstop in the entrepreneurship space. It's let me do this so that I can feel this in my relationships and then I can feel this way. If you're doing that way, I'm just telling you, it's the most exhausting way to live and it's going to lead you to destruction. But if you start with identity, if you start with knowing actually who you are, and if you don't feel like you know, totally fine. It's just taking you back to the beginning of, hey, I got to figure out who I am. Who does God say I am? And if you don't know who God says you are, go look up scripture. It'll tell you who God says you are. Stamp that on your heart. Understand who you are. Then you'll actually more understand he's my actual father in heaven. And then look at your purpose and tell me if it looks different. Your purpose is going to radically change, just like mine has. So I don't even look at Uncaged Clinician as a coaching consulting business. The way that we talk internally, it's a ministry.
Ooh, yes.
It's 100%. It always has been. I just needed the little shift for me to be able to start seeing it in that way. And so does that mean that we preach to people all the time? Absolutely not. Just like Paul said, we have to become all things to all people. Yeah. If somebody's not a Christian and they come into our coaching consulting program, I'm not going to preach at them, but man, I'm going to make sure that the right values are instilled in them. Right. So, anyway, I could go on and on with this, Sherrill, wherever. And
I will let you go on and on and on because man, I didn't even have this question down, but, I would love to kind of hear with this new framework in mind, your decision-making process, when they say, let God lead your business, what does that look like for you? That's something I'm still exploring, right now, like, hey, I have this idea, I want to do this, I take it to him in prayer, you know, but it's still something that, I'm figuring out and working out. Do you have any insight on that or
Oh
what you
yeah,
guys are doing?
because it's changed for us and me again radically over the last 2 years. And I would say that it's a much less anxiety ridden process.
Mm.
What it usually looked like, I'll tell you what it used to look like and what it looks like now. What it used to look like is we were trying to make a decision. Me or one of my other business partner that are probably the primary decision makers are going to make a decision based on what we feel. We're going to explain why we feel that way, and then we're going to go that direction. We didn't really check with God, to be honest. Now what it looks like, and why I say much less anxiety ridden, is it's God's business. It's not mine. I'm literally a steward and a slave to it. Wherever he wants to go, we're going. If that means $1 million business or then fine. If it doesn't, then that's cool. Totally cool too.
Mm-hmm.
I don't try to get wrapped up in that anymore. If it's really God's business, I literally don't care where it goes. It's just my job to be a good steward of it. And so when we have a decision that comes up, like we do right now, we come together as a team. We explain the decision that we need to make. And then very simply, we pray on it. So this is a slower process. We pray on it. And then we come back together, no matter how long that takes. We come back together and say, well, what's God saying? What do we feel like we need to do? And then if we are in unity, because God creates unity, he does not create disunity.
Mm-hmm.
If we are in unity, then we're going to move forward. If there's multiple people that are not on board with it, then we're gonna take a step back for a second and keep seeking God on that. That's my process now, both professionally in business and personally. You know how simple this is? You know how much my wife and I's life has changed in the last 2 years of just simply when difficult things come up, we just as a married couple just get on our knees and pray about it together. I mean, I've been a Christian all my life. I grew up in the Catholic Church. I never did that.
Yeah.
But you know how much stress and relief melts off in situations when it's just like, God's going to take care of us. So he's good. So let's just go to him. This situation kind of sucks, but I know he's going to figure it out. So let's just go to him because we don't have the right answers. And then we can all guess what happens, right? When we get into the presence of God, here's something that you can take away as well. When you get into the presence of God and when you get around godly people, things just become more clear. Right?
Yes.
When you get into the presence of God, things just become more clear. And so when my wife and I go and pray about things, sure, yeah, maybe some things have taken weeks or months to get an answer on, but we just get abundantly more clear about what we feel like we need to do. And then if we both feel in unity on that, then we move in that direction. But someone also shared this with me, which has really freed me up about decision making.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to understand that we have our own free will. But if you think that your own decision making is more powerful than God's will, then you're wrong. Because God's will is stronger than any bad decision we'll ever make. And so sometimes I think also as Christians as well, we get so wrapped up in trying to always make the right decision. And of course, it's good to make the right, informed, discerned decision. But at some point, you have to make a decision. And you have to trust that God's will is going to come to pass in your life no matter what. But if you think that your decision making is more important than his overall will, you're wrong. I mean, he can take all the evil. How mind-blowing is it that he can take literally all the evil in the world that we're all so scared about, and he can turn it into good, because the world is evil, and he's constantly turning each evil situation into good, whether we see that or not. Like we can't put too much power in our own decision-making process. We just have to, at some point, what does it say in the Psalms? Be still and trust God.
Josh,
be still and know that I am God. Sorry. Be still and know that I am God. Yeah.
The way that you just blessed me and the light bulb that just came. And because, oh man, right now I have been working on decision making, and oh my God, I go back and forth. And did I hear God right? Or did I, did I hear this correctly from him? Did I not? Is this right? I want to make the right decision. And I had to take a note. You said God's will is stronger than any bad decision we will ever make. I was like, duh, duh. And then to the point that, like, rather than make the bad decision, you almost just do nothing at all.
Yes.
And then
Yes.
it's like, and then that still puts you behind. So just make the decision. God's will is going to prevail anyway. So why are you stressing?
Even if you make a bad decision, he's going to teach you an incredible lesson through it. What did he do with the Israelites? It took them 40 years instead of like a week. I don't know how long it was supposed to take, but it took them 40 years because they didn't learn the lesson God was trying to teach them. And so it was actually his radical goodness and love that kept them in the desert to continue to teach them lessons before they came to the promised land. It's the exact same thing as our life. Like, okay, if you make bad decision after bad decision after bad decision after bad decision, yeah, it's going to take you a long time to get where God wants to go, but he's still going to turn those things to good if you keep turning towards him. Here's the scary part. If you just keep making bad decision, sin, and then don't turn towards him the entire process, yeah, you're going to lead yourself to destruction. But you can know as a Christian that, hey, even if I were to make the bad decision, as long as I keep my eyes on him, his will is going to prevail.
Man. Oh, so good.
And then
So
really,
good.
like, here's something that's freed me. Does it really matter where the ultimate destination is if we're actually with God? Does it really matter?
This is true.
Like all the things that I said I originally wanted, this multi-million dollar business, and lots of that hasn't come true yet. But man, I'm probably the most content that I've been. And business isn't perfect. Business is challenging. I've got lots of demands in life right now. But once you start realizing that we've got to stop idolizing the destination and start just enjoying the process, because just like the Israelites, there is something for us to learn in every single moment and every single season. If we don't catch this, if we don't catch it, we're not going to be ready for the next season. And so if you just sit in your current season in misery and apathy and all the stuff, you're not going to learn what God needs you to learn in that season to then step into the next season, which may be the next season of stepping into your full calling and purpose. And if you're not ready, you can't be mad at him. He took you through the right season. You just didn't learn. And so then you're going to go into the next season. And if you're not ready, then you're going to embarrass yourself in that next season. And then he's going to have to teach you, because of his radical goodness, he's going to have to teach you something new in that season to then get to the next part, right? So if we can just, with open hands, no matter what season we're in, always get to the point of just saying, God, this season is yours. This may not look like I thought it was going to look, but man, you know way better than I do. And so I'm just going to enjoy this season the best that I can. I'm going to find joy in this season the best that I can. I'm going to find your goodness the best that I can in this season, because it's always there. We just have to actually look for it. And if we can actually live our lives like that, man, it frees us up so much. But again, Western society, the American dream, I'm also going to dog on that a little bit, says just go hard after all the desires of your heart. But then what are you missing in the process?
Why are you in my business? Why was that word for me?
I don't know.
Oh man. So good. Wow. And just to piggyback off of what you said, I think I realized I got caught up in what you see on social media and going after the desires of your heart, and oh my God, I'm going to be a millionaire, and these things, this is what I'm supposed to do. And even in this season, I'm working in a clinic. And it's so funny. It's like, as soon as I decided that I was going to that was going to be my new thing, choose joy. What does that look like through movement? What does that look like through conversation at this podcast? And then I was put in situations where I actively had to choose joy.
Mm.
And I was like, oh, that's what we're doing today, God? That's how you feel? You gonna let me learn a lesson in it? And when you said, give the season to God, you don't want to miss the lesson. It spoke to me because this week was a rough week. And I
Mm-hmm.
was like, I went from having my own business and controlling my schedule to now I'm in the clinic and I can't believe I'm here and all these things. And when you said that, I was
Ooh.
like, oh, Sherrill, don't miss the lesson. You're so busy being frustrated with the fact that you're not where you once were. What if all of the things that you need are in the next season, but you're missing the current lesson? And I was like, oh, that was for me. That's for other people. But let me tell you something, John. That was for me. I needed that.
Not many people, like literally maybe 5 people know this. I'm gonna share it with your audience on this podcast. Because everybody looks at Uncaged Clinician, they're just like, oh, it's super successful and all this stuff. Well, 2021 was a little bit rough. And guess what I needed to do? I had to provide for my family. I did home health for 6 months last year. Nobody knew that. Sometimes you got to do what you got to do. But also, once I started to realize, because just like you, just last year, I was in the middle of that season and I was just so mad. Until I started to look at it with a little bit of joy on my face. Like, what do I need to learn from this? Like, man, there's probably lots of business owners out there that can probably learn from this story. Like, what do I need to learn from this so that I can get to the point next season where I hope that I don't have to go back to doing a job like this? Because I do not enjoy home health. I love the people, but I don't like the paperwork. And it wasn't the thing that I wanted to do. But I knew that it was what I needed to do in that season. And I'm glad that I did it. And I'm grateful to say now, as I'm talking on this podcast, I'm not doing home health anymore. I'm just working within our business, but I had to do it in that season. And so I would just encourage you. But I want to say this, this just triggered something for me when you were saying that. And maybe this is something that you need to hear, that all of us need to hear. I know I needed to hear it. There's a book by John Eldredge called You Have What It Takes. It's literally the shortest read in the world. How it was given to me was like, Josh, you can literally, while taking a little bit of a bathroom break, can finish this book. and so I did. And here's the beautiful thing. When we were talking about identity and then relationship with God and purpose, what it says in the book is that most men go their entire lives just trying to hear you have what it takes from their father. Most women go through their entire lives trying to hear that you are beautiful from their dad. Those are 2 statements that profoundly impact men and women. Men, you've got what it takes. You're a man. You have what it takes to do what you need to do. Women, you're beautiful. You are inside and out. That's what we want to hear from our fathers. And so if we really, really know and believe that you are a beloved daughter, if I really believe that I'm a beloved son, and since being saved, that I'm literally a part of the family, as it says in the Bible, like I'm literally a son of the family. Like I become a part of the royal family, then I will believe in my heart from what God has already said that I have what it takes because I'm the son. I'm a son of the creator of the universe. So of course I have what it takes. Like, come on. And of course you're beautiful. He created you the way that you are for a very specific reason. And so that really hit me because I think this sounds so childish, but I'm just being vulnerable and sharing. I think lots of my entrepreneurship journey has been trying to prove to my parents and to my family then I am successful. But
Mm.
here's the shift. I love my parents, I love my family. But if I'm living for their approval, that's not a very good identity. If I really believe that I'm a beloved son, I'm living for his approval. And so suddenly when the only thing that matters to me is just like, I want him to be proud of me. I want him to say, well done, faithful servant, good and faithful servant when I die.
Mm-hmm.
If that's all that matters, then you know what? Like, man, I'm going to throw away all the things that I'm trying to do to look successful to my family, to look successful to my peers. Man, that doesn't matter. And once I trashed that stuff, my life has become more free. Is my life perfect now? Absolutely not. It never will be until I die. But it's become more free. And that is why, full circle, that's why I still haven't published the second book. Because I know deep in my heart, as God's done some radical heart surgery on me, that the main reason of me wanting to publish a second book was ego and pride, and wanting to show everybody how much I know and how much I can help you and how much wisdom I have. It's just like, you're never going to be satisfied and fulfilled and full of joy doing that. I wrote this down for you. Nehemiah 8:10. And do not be grieved, for the joy of the Lord is your strength. And so I've found strength from that moment of weakness in the joy of the Lord. And even the practices of just being with God on a regular basis, even like I was before this podcast, I believe like I can see it. People tell me, people have even told me like the countenance of my face has changed. And so like, I just say this not to look at me, but to look at God and be like, dude, he can radically change your life if we spend time with him. And man, this Western world better stop looking at the Bible as this mythical book and better start realizing that it is the number one thing that will save you. But you know why? Because I don't mean to dog on America, but it's true. Especially America, we're obsessed with finding happiness.
Mm-hmm.
It's the pursuit of happiness, but happiness is a counterfeit version of joy. And so if that's what you're looking for, that's fine. But joy is only found in the Lord. Only. He's the only source of joy. And those people that know this know what I'm talking about, because you know exactly what it feels like. You know exactly what that joy feels like. It is way different than happiness. And so that happiness that I felt when I published my first book, I was happy, but it was fleeting. It's a counterfeit version of joy. The joy I feel now was only caused by me going through a lot of hardships. Oh yeah, by the way, we had to sell our house in last year as well. Sold our dream house. Right now we're living, I'm just trying to be as humble as possible so that your people can get this. I'm living with my mom as we speak right now. Me and my kids and my wife. We had to do that because our house was too much. We couldn't afford it. It was way too much. But again, that's what happens when you go after the desires of your heart. And I am way more joyful in this season than I was owning my dream home. It may look like I've got a cool office right now. My bed's right there. I'm in the corner of a small bedroom, living at my mom's house, and have more joy in this moment than I did in the previous season. I don't know what God's got next. I know we're probably going to move into another house next year, but we'll probably be renting. But my point is this, is like all the things that we think provide happiness, it's just fleeting. It's just short term. And I'm not interested in short-term happiness. I'm interested in long-term joy. And so just know that if you're going after the things of this world, you're going after fleeting happiness, which is just simply a counterfeit version of joy. The only way that we're actually going to find joy is when we spend time with God, because he is the source of all joy. He's the strength. The Lord is for the joy of the Lord is your strength. And when you find that, you start to understand that, oh my goodness, it is my strength. This means that no matter my circumstances, I can find joy. No matter my circumstances, whether I'm rich or poor, I can find joy. That's amazing, right? Even when hopefully this hits your people. Even when student loans come back into effect and you're like, oh crap, even then you can find joy. Even when you're not even sure, like, man, I don't even know how I'm going to pay those payments. Even then you can find joy, because he's going to take care of you some way or another. But I don't know about you, but I want to make sure that I've got his protection, that he's going before me in those situations, because then I can know it's already taken care of. But if he's not on my side and I'm not really seeking him, and then I'm trying to attack all these different situations in life, knowing that he's not actually going before me, then I'm screwed. Right? And so
Wow.
we can attack life with so much joy when we actually realize, if we are a beloved son and daughter, that means that we are the son of the living God. And that means that we do then have a new purpose in our life to build his kingdom, not our own. Because what happens when we're building our own kingdom is we throw up our own walls. And then guess what? Here's the thing that we got to all hear. You're the king or queen in that case. And so guess what? When the storms of life come, guess who has to protect your own kingdom? You do. So if you're cool with running your own kingdom, throwing up your own walls, being the king or queen, yeah, you can handle that by yourself. But I'd rather live in his kingdom and know that when the storms come, he's got my back. He's got me covered. But the majority of us are like, let me build up the house and the 401k. And look, there's nothing inherently wrong with any of those things. We should be being diligent with our money and building towards those things and being smart with our money. But when that becomes the sole focus, and your sole focus just becomes building your own kingdom, just understand that you're going to have to defend your own kingdom too, because at some point or another, life's going to smack you across the face. And are you going to have him with you or not?
Speechless. Josh, before I got on here, I prayed and I said, God, you direct this conversation. And I love to be prepared, and I prepared these questions, and I had all the things. And I asked you one of the 10 questions. And you just moved God the way. Thank you. Wow. Wow. I'm so grateful. Ah,
Me too.
that blessed me. I know it's going to bless the listeners, and I think as entrepreneurs, and even some of us who went through physical therapy school, we're very hard. I'm very hard on myself. And, you see people on Instagram, and, you just never know what happens behind the scenes. And, I know I've been at a place where I should be here, but I'm not, right? I should own a house. I should be, but I live with my mother. I'm here in an office, and it just makes you feel like, I'm okay. Things are gonna be okay. As long as you don't give up, as long as you give it to God, and you let him be the head, and you stay consistent, it's gonna be okay.
Yeah. Just to be really clear, that was your prayer. My prayer prior to this was, Lord, give me the wisdom to be able to share with Sherrill's audience, specifically about what he's done in my life. So just understand that, yes, he's given me a lot of great experiences that has led to great knowledge in him, but it's all come from him. I'm just grateful to be able to share, because there's stuff that I just shared that I haven't even shared with that much conviction. Because we're still navigating waters on how far to push into all of that. And so to be able to just share freely from my heart, and to even be able to share with you guys, which there's even students of mine that don't even know that I'm sitting in my mom's bedroom right now. But here's what I feel compelled to say. My dad is an alcoholic, still is. Man, just an abundantly kind man, but I've seen someone allow addiction and sin just absolutely destroy their life. And I went on this wrecking path as a young man. I'm not going to be like my dad. And my worst nightmare, my mom used to even tell me this in college when I almost flunked out of art appreciation my freshman year. She said, honey, I'll look forward to making your room ready for you at my house. My mom was hard on me, and I'm really grateful for that. I remember getting off the phone and I was so pissed. It's like, I'm not moving home. So it has been my biggest nightmare. It's been my biggest fear to have to ever move in with my parents again as an adult. Nevertheless, as a married man with 2 boys. So that was my biggest fear. It was my biggest nightmare, and that came true. But it's been the biggest blessing to know that at 36 years old, my mom's got me. To know at 36 years old that my family can find refuge here, and that, man, it's made our family stronger. My mom has gotten moments with our 2 little boys that she's so grateful for that she'll never get. She would have never gotten if this didn't happen. And the Lord has met us in this moment of truly humbling us to our knees. That, hey, man, the way that you guys were going after material possessions in your life is just not the way. And the only possession that I really have to my name is a 2008 Toyota 4Runner sitting out there. That's it. The house, everything. I won't get into the details, but we did a full renovation on it. It sucked us dry of everything that we had. Every bank account, negative. That's why you feel the intensity in my voice of, let's just be careful not going after the things that the world tells us to go after. Because I've literally felt the destruction, but I also could not be happier. I am beyond joyful that God's given me that testimony now. Beyond joyful. Because I am so hard-headed and so stubborn that I don't think I could have learned any other way. I don't think that, now let's get back to the decision making. I don't think any of that was an actual will. I think it was me making a free will decision and me making another free will decision and me making a free will decision. And then, catch this, God's ridiculous goodness pulling us out of every single situation that we found ourselves in. And so I just tell you guys that just to say that, man, the last 2 years from the outside, I think every person from the outside is just like, that actually knows our family is literally like, oh my gosh, like what has happened? And on the inside, my wife and I are like, that is the greatest thing that has ever happened to us. Mm-hmm. The greatest thing that has ever happened to us. Like, thank you, Lord. And I know that was not your will, but now we are on track with your will, and it feels so right and so good. And so I just tell that last little piece just to connect with your audience, because I do care about you guys, and I care about your life, and I care about where you're going in your own life, that we've got to be careful where we place our trust and what things that we go after, because I didn't know, even at the time, I had a healthy bank account, healthy life, healthy business. I didn't know that I was one decision away from nearly going bankrupt. But it was a lesson I had to learn. And so if I can save you from going down similar paths, I'm going to share it unfiltered, because I care more about helping you than I do about my own ego and my own pride.
Thank you. Josh, where can the people find you?
Oh man, you can find me on social media. I try not to be on there too often. So if I don't get back to you in a very short amount of time, I'm very sorry. But you can find me on social media, Josh Payne, Dr. Josh Payne 11 on Instagram. Definitely not on there very often. But probably the best place is Josh at uncagedclinician.com.
I love it. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. This was better than I could have ever imagined. I'm so grateful. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for letting me share.
All right, you guys. Well, we will see you in the next episode.